Namaste and welcome to our session fourth, day fourth and week 2. This is Kavita Vachaknavi, your host, coordinator and director for the program. And we are back with Sri Venkatesh Tyagasamudram ji. I welcome him to this for this session. And he professionally he has a technical background, resides in Boston area, but personally he has a deep love for Sanskrit and Indian culture and is associated with Chinmaya Mission and Samskritam Bharati for more than 15 years and 20 years, 18 years. So he will be talking about Srimad Bhagavad Gita today. It is quite an interesting subject for all of us to learn and cherish ourselves with this learning without wasting any time, much time to talking about him or anything. I invite him to please come to the podium and continue with his presentation. Welcome, Venkatesh ji.
Thank you, Kavita ji. Hari Om, Namaste, greetings. Thank you for the introduction. So I will make an attempt basically to give you an introduction to Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Of course, I'm going to take you through a brief summary of each chapter, illustrating some situations with some small stories to help you understand the concept a bit better, because it's going to be difficult otherwise to understand without some stories. So the stories will make things interesting. As you may appreciate, it is going to be difficult to cover the entire Bhagavad Gita in just over an hour. So I'll try my best to be doing reasonable justice by sharing some salient points here. So first, before we go into the Bhagavad Gita itself, a little bit connection between the Vedas and the Bhagavad Gita. Now, you all have gone through extensive talks by eminent speakers all these days. I've been watching some of those, and you know what Vedas means. So Vedas, they are the eternal knowledge of God, okay, in which he manifests himself when he creates this world. So in the cycle of creation, he first created the Brahman, and then through that generation, he has propagated for thousands of years by oral tradition from master to disciple. And so this also is called Shruti, which means it has been received by hearing only, okay? It is also Apaurushaya, which means it is not created by human being. It is from the God direct. So in Indian philosophy, thus the Vedas are considered the ultimate authority for validating any spiritual principle. No questions asked there. The Vedic scriptures are vast, but 3 of them have been traditionally been called the Prasthanatrayi, which means the 3 points of commencement for understanding the Vedic thought. They are the Upanishads. You have heard talks on Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, and the last, but not the least, the Bhagavad Gita. The Upanishads are the section of the Vedas that deal with philosophical knowledge and are considered the cream of the Vedas. The Brahma Sutras is a synopsis of the Upanishads. It was written by Veda Vyas sage to provide the philosophical conclusion of the Vedic knowledge. Because it occurs at the end of the Vedic knowledge, it is also called Vedant, meaning the culmination of the Vedic thought. Like the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras are also hard to comprehend, and its conciseness often leads to ambiguity and subjective interpretation. Whereas the Bhagavad Gita is more accessible, more than the above 2 scriptures, the Upanishads and the Brahma Sutras. It provides a comprehensive and an easy to understand summary of the Vedic philosophy. So a little bit background on Bhagavad Gita. So for those of you who do not know, the scene is the battle of Mahabharata in the battlefield of Kurukshetra about 5,150 years ago. Arjuna, the warrior, surveys the enemy camp and is overcome with grief that he has to fight his own relatives, teachers, and elders for the sake of enjoying the kingdom. Bhagavad Gita literally translates the song of the God. Bhagavat meaning the God and Gita meaning song. So it was the sacred song, but it was sung none other than the Lord himself, Lord Krishna himself. So the Bhagavad Gita, who compiled it? It was compiled originally by sage Vedavyasa as a separate text. Later on, when he wrote the Mahabharata, he embedded the Bhagavad Gita in it. So the Mahabharata itself has got 18 sections, and the Bhagavad Gita is set in the 6th section, which is called the Bhishma Parva. Bhagavad Gita has got 18 chapters and contains a total of 700 verses in all. This holy book, basically, which is in the form of a dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna as the warrior, and is reported to the blind king Dhritarashtra by his charioteer Sanjaya, and is recorded in the great epic, the Mahabharata. So Bhagavad Gita has teachings for the entire mankind and is relevant to all times, more importantly. So before we go into the Bhagavad Gita itself, because I will be citing a few shlokas here and there, it is appropriate to do a few dhyana shlokas to enter into the Bhagavad Gita. So I'm going to say a few dhyana shlokas. Om Partaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavata Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Munina Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitaamritavarshinim Bhagavatim Ashtadashadhyayinim Ambatvam Anusandadhami Bhagavad Gita Bhavadveshinim Namostu te Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullaravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajwalito Jnanamayah Pradhipaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanura Mardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutah Stunvanti Divyaistavaihi Vedai Sangha Padakramopanishadaihi Gayanti Yam Samagaha Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yoginah Yasyantam Naviduh Sura Suraganah Devaya Tasmai Namaha Devaya Tasmai Namaha. So, the first chapter now is the Arjuna Vishada Yoga, meaning Arjuna's despair. So, the war of Mahabharata, as I told you before, was about to begin after all the peace talks by Lord Krishna and others failed to avoid the war. When the soldiers were assembled on the battlefield, Arjuna asked Lord Krishna to drive his chariot between the two enemy camps so that he could see who he would be fighting against. Seeing all his relatives, friends, teachers, and soldiers on the battlefield, and fearing that this war would bring out the destruction, he is overcome by compassion that results in great sorrow. He sees no use in fighting and does not want to fight. It is then Lord Krishna urges Arjuna to fight for his rights, but not to kill unnecessarily. As a Kshatriya, which means warrior, it was his duty to fight a war that has been declared and establish peace, law, and order on earth. Now, as human beings, we have wars going on between the negative and the positive forces within us all the time. The negative forces within us are represented by Kauravas, and the positive forces are represented by the Pandavas. Now, let's hear a story from Lord Krishna himself that he told Arjuna on this subject. There once lived a great hermit who was known for his truthfulness. He had taken a vow never to say a lie. Now, one evening, a robber was chasing a merchant to rob and kill him. The merchant, who was trying to escape from the robber, ran towards the forest outside the village where this hermit lived. Although the hermit now believed he was safe, the hermit had the merchant believed that he was safe, the hermit had seen the direction in which the merchant went. So when the robber came to the hermit's cottage, he paid his due respects to the guru, and knowing that the hermit only will speak the truth, he asked him if he had seen someone running this way. The hermit now knew that the robber was looking for someone to rob and kill him. He was in a dilemma. If he told the truth, the merchant would be killed by the robber. On the other hand, if he lied, he would incur the sin of lying and also lose his reputation because he has already taken a vow that he will never say a lie. Now, what is a sin? An immoral act that may harm others is called sin. So ahimsa and truthfulness are the two most important teachings that one must follow. Thus, it is a difficult choice to choose between the two. But due to his habit of always speaking the truth, the hermit replied yes to the robber. The robber was able to find the merchant and finally kill him. The hermit could have saved a life by hiding the truth, but he did not think carefully and ended up making a wrong decision. So the purpose this story was told by the Lord to Arjuna was that sometimes we have to choose between a rock and a hard place. Lord Krishna said the hermit shared the sin of killing a life with the robber, as the robber could not have found the merchant had the hermit not told the truth. So when two noble principles conflict with each other, we have to know which one is the higher of the two, and that one we have to uphold. Ahimsa, which meaning not causing harm to someone, has the highest priority, and the hermit should have lied in this case in order to save that life. This isn't easy to apply the dharma righteousness in real situations because dharma and adharma could sometimes be difficult to decide in such situations. So here is one when somebody should seek expert advice. Arjuna in this case was very lucky because the Lord himself was there as an expert to give him the advice and to convince him. Now we will move. This is the summary of the first chapter. So the second chapter is the Sankhya Yoga, which is the knowledge of God. Here Arjuna has a great point when he says that how could he strike his great-grandfather, the gurus, and the elderly and the honorable persons and all other superiors who are worthy of respect. Here is where he gets confused about his duty and asks guidance from Lord Krishna. So the Lord Krishna instructed him on the true knowledge of Atma or soul and the physical body. What is Atma? Atma is called the spirit or the soul and never perishes and is everlasting. It is only our body that takes birth and dies. The soul or the Atma supports the body, without which the body is dead. The soul is the one that supplies power to the body, mind, and the senses. Since the soul is indestructible, one should not grieve over the death of a mere body. This is what Krishna says to Arjuna. So he says this shloka in chapter 2, Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, na chainam kledayantyapah, na shochayati marutaha. So he says weapons cannot destroy the soul, nor fire can burn it. Water cannot wet it, nor the wind dry it. So he explains the difference between the soul and the body and says the Atma is unborn and hence it's indestructible. One and the same Atma dwells inside all the bodies of the human or the non-human, hence all the Atma are really connected with each other. This is why we should do our duty to the best of our ability and respect every soul as the Atma, Paramatma himself, because he is the one that's residing in every soul. It is just a demarcation of an individual body, but they're all connected with each other. Now, we should do our best duty to the best of our ability without worrying about success or failure. To become a perfect person, one must control our desires. Uncontrolled desires for pleasure lead us only to failure and suffering in life. So this is the chapter 2 summary. Now, going on to the chapter 3, which is the Karma Yoga. This Srimad Bhagavad Gita basically has, I told you, the essence of all the Vedas and Upanishads that are applicable for all times and surely for this modern time as well. So whatever is being told in Bhagavad Gita, what was told in Bhagavad Gita many, many years ago is still applicable today and will be applicable for many years after also. It's evergreen. The Karma Yoga requires you to do your duty to the best of your ability, unselfishly, without attachment to the results of the work. So it is important to choose a career that is best suited for your nature. No job is small. It is not what you do that counts, but how you do is important. Those who do their duty selflessly for the good of all people will find real peace and satisfaction. We should help and serve each other. A great Karma Yogi shows how to lead a selfless life and attain God by following the path of selfless persons. Lord Rama's father-in-law, King Janaka, Mahatma Gandhi were some examples of great Karma Yogis. King Janaka attained God by serving his people as his own children selflessly and without attachment to the results of his action. He did this duty as worship of God. Mahatma Gandhi worked selflessly all his life without any personal motive, just for the good of society. He set an example for other world leaders to follow. Now here I will recite a modern story of how a selfless service works wonders in life. There was a poor Scottish farmer who, while he was engaged in his daily duties, heard a cry for help coming from a nearby swamp. He dropped his tools and ran to the bog. There, he saw a terrified boy sunk to his waist in the swamp, screaming and struggling to free himself. The farmer, by the name of Fleming, saved this lad from what could have been a slow and terrifying death. The next day, a fancy carriage pulled up at the Scottish farmer's home. A well-dressed nobleman stepped out, introduced himself as the father of the boy that the farmer had saved. "I want to thank and repay you," said the nobleman. "You saved my son's life." The farmer, rejecting the offer, said, "I can't really accept any payment for what I did. I did my duty." Right at that moment, the farmer's son came to the door of the family house. The nobleman asked, "Is that your son?" The farmer said, "Yes," with a proud smile on his face. So the nobleman said, "I'll make you a deal. Let me provide him the level of education that my son will enjoy. If the lad is anything like his father, he will no doubt grow up to be a man we both will be proud of." And he did. Farmer Fleming's son attended the very best school and in time graduated from St. Mary's Hospital Medical School in London and went on to become known as the noted Sir Alexander Fleming. Years later, the same nobleman's son, who was saved from the swamp, was stricken with pneumonia. The drug that saved that person was penicillin, again discovered by Sir Alexander Fleming. The nobleman in this case was Lord Randolph Churchill, and his son was Sir Winston Churchill, the former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. So what do we understand from this? What goes around comes around. This is the universal law of karma, the law of cause and effect. You help someone fulfill someone's dream, your dream will be fulfilled by the Lord. This is the essence of Karma Yoga. So moving on, we will go to the chapter 4, which is Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, which talks about renunciation with knowledge. So the Supreme God says he comes to the earth as an incarnation, we call it avatar, whenever there is a decline in dharma and adharma shows its ugly teeth. So you may have heard this very popular shloka from chapter 4, Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyuttanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. So I will come to this earth, I will incarnate myself whenever there is a decline in dharma and the adharma increases beyond tolerance. This is what God says. And each incarnation that the avatar, that the God comes in, has a specific purpose. We know why Lord Rama came, we know why Lord Krishna came, and you know why Lord Narasimha came. There's also a story about Lord Narasimha that we will talk about later. Now, what is karma? Karma means action, and it also means the result of the action. Every action produces a result, which is either a good or a bad karma. If we perform an action that results in good for others, we earn good karma called punya. And if we perform an action harmful to somebody, we incur sin or papa. Our own karma is basically responsible for our rebirth to enjoy or suffer the results of our deeds. Karma can be likened to depositing money in the form of good and bad actions. We cease to take birth when all our karma, good or bad, is used up. Freedom from the cycle of life and birth and death is called liberation or moksha. When one attains moksha, the soul becomes one with the Lord. This is nirvana or moksha. Now, there are different ways to reach God. These methods are called spiritual practices or sadhana. Any action that is beneficial to society is called yajna or sacrifice. Now, there are different types of yajna that the people do. First, giving charity for a good cause, doing meditation, worship, or engage in yogic exercises, reading scriptures to gain the knowledge of God, having control over the mind and other five senses. The Lord fulfills the desires of those who worship Him. Both selfless service and self-knowledge free the soul from the bondage of karma. The Lord is the one who gives this self-knowledge to those who do selfless service. Self-knowledge burns our past karma and frees us from the cycles of birth and death. So, moving on to chapter 5, which is the Karma Sannyasa Yoga, which is the path of renunciation. Here, I would like to cite Sri Adi Shankaracharya, one of the famous spiritual guru ever have come on this earth, but for whom Sanatana Dharma will not be in its present form today. Some spiritual leaders like Adi Shankaracharya consider the path of renouncing all worldly possessions as the highest path and goal of life. Lord Krishna says, even an enlightened person or a sannyasi is one who has given up all his personal motives and sees the Lord in awe. Such a person looks at a learned person or an illiterate, the rich, the poor, an outcast, or a cow, or an elephant, or a dog with an equal eye. He does not see any difference between them. Adi Shankaracharya, now, who was believed to be Lord Shiva in human form, was one of the greatest spiritual leaders of all times. Shankara wrote the first commentary of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit. Although a self-realized man, Shankara initially had the feeling of duality of high and low caste. His faith in the absolute Brahman or the God was not firmly established in his heart. One day, when Shankara, while on his way back after bathing in the Ganges, saw an untouchable, a butcher carrying a load of meat. The butcher came in his way to touch Shankara's feet as a mark of respect. Shankara shouted angrily, "Get out of my way! How dare you touch me? Now I have to take bath again." At this, the butcher responded, "Holy sir, neither have I touched you, nor you have touched me. The pure self cannot be the body or the five elements out of which the body is created." It is then that Shankara saw the vision of Lord Shiva in the butcher. Lord Shiva had himself come to Shankara to firmly implant the non-dualistic philosophy in him. Shankara, of course, was a much better person from that day onwards, purely by the grace of Lord Shiva. This story basically illustrates that equality with all beings is difficult to practice all the time. To have such a feeling is the mark of a truly God-realized soul or a sannyasi. This Lord Krishna considers this path of selfless service or seva, we call, to humanity without attachment to its results as the best path for most people. Thus, both the path of self-knowledge and the path of selfless service lead one to a happy life on the earth and then eventually to liberation or moksha after the death. So this is a summary of chapter 5. Now, moving on to chapter 6, which is basically the path of meditation. Bhagavan says how one should meditate. It is Atma Samyama Yoga, where you basically control all your senses. The third path, which Lord Krishna says, leading the person to God, is the path of meditation. A yogi who is united with God has control over his mind, senses, and desires. He is free from anger and greed. He sees God in everything and everything in God. So this shloka explains that in chapter 6, Jnana Vijnana Triptatma Kutasto Vijitendriyaha Yukta Ichyutyate Yogi Samaloštashma Kanchanaha. The yogi who are satisfied with knowledge and discrimination and have conquered their senses remain undisturbed in all circumstances. They see everything, dirt, stone, or gold, the same. He who sees everything, every being with an equal eye, whether a friend or an enemy, a relative or a hater, a saint or a sinner, he feels the pain and pleasure of others as his own. That person is a yogi whose mind remains calm during the worst times. Yata deepo nivatasthaha nengate sopama smrita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanaha. Imagine when you keep a lamp in a windless room where there's no air, absolutely, the lamp is going to burn without flickering at all. So that is how a disciplined mind of a yogi will be, remaining steady in meditation on the self. A simple method of meditation uses the sound vibration of Om, and it is important to note that no spiritual practice ever goes waste. So this is chapter 6. Now moving on to chapter 7, which is Jnana Vijnana Yoga, or knowledge and enlightenment. Now there are 4 types of people in this world who worship or seek to understand God and they are classified by Krishna as follows. 1, they try to reach to God when they are in some kind of trouble or seeking a remedy. Common man. Those who are trying to actually get the knowledge of God, the second set of people. Those who want to have a lot of wealth, desirous of a lot of wealth, they are the third category. And the fourth one, the wise ones who know God. So Bhagavan says, Chatur vidha bhajante mam jana sukriti norjuna arto jignyasurartarti jnani cha bharatarshava. So Lord Krishna considers all these 4 peoples as his devotees. However, he says the wise one is the best because a wise one worships God without wanting anything in return from him. So he considers that category of the people the best out of the 4. Now, I want to say a story here to understand this concept, where it's a simple story of seeing God in all beings. Now, in a forest, there lived a holy man who had many disciples. He taught them to see God in all beings and to bow down before them. One day, a disciple went into the forest to get some wood for fire. Suddenly, he heard a shout, "Get out of the way, a mad elephant is coming." Everyone but the disciple of the holy man ran away. He saw the elephant as God in another form, stood still, bowed before the elephant, and began meditating on God in the form of an elephant. The mahout, or the trainer of the elephant, shouted again, "Run away, run away." But the disciple did not move. The animal grabbed him with his trunk, threw him to one side, and went on its way. The disciple lay unconscious on the ground. His god brothers came and carried him to the hermitage and helped him regain consciousness. When someone asked him why he didn't leave the place when the elephant was coming, the elephant said, "The Guru taught that God is in all beings, animals as well as in human beings. Therefore, I thought it was the elephant God." At this, the Guru said, "Yes, my child, It is true that the elephant god was coming, but then the mahout asked you to get out of the way. Why did you not trust the mahout? Further, the elephant god does not have the self-knowledge that all are gods. God dwells in all beings. God is even in the tiger, but then you cannot hug the tiger on that account. Be close only with good people and keep away from the evil-minded. Keep away from the unholy, the evil, and the impure ones. God cannot be seen with our physical eyes. Does not mean he does not exist, but he can be felt by the eyes of knowledge, faith, and devotion only. So there is only one God, although he has many names. The entire creation is made up of 5 basic elements and the spirit. God is both formless, avyaya, and with form. God can take any form as well. One cannot know the true nature of God unless one has spiritual knowledge. Moving on to the 8th chapter, which is the Akshara Brahma Yoga, where the Lord talks about the eternal Brahma. Here, Arjuna questions Lord Krishna about some terms called what is Adhyatman, what is Karma, what is Adi Bhutam, what is Adi Daivam, what is Adi Yajna. So, because of lack of time, I'm going to skip the explanation of those, which also is going to be a little bit too much for this discussion. So we will just go and see the other concepts that are in this yoga. Lord Krishna explains how to gain the supreme abode, which he calls Parandhama. The supreme abode is higher than the heaven. Those who have the knowledge, true knowledge of God, are the realized souls, and they reach the house of God. This is called the path of no return. Shukla Krishne Gati Hyete Jagata Shashvate Mate Ekaya Yatyana Vrittim Anyaya Vartate Punaha. So people without the necessary qualities such as austerity, faith in God, knowledge of God cannot reach this abode or Parandama. Those who have done good work but have not realized God go to heaven by virtue of their good karma and take birth on earth again until they perfect themselves and attain this self-realization. A very simple and easy method of God realization is also to remember God and do your duty. Moving on to chapter 9, which is the Raja Vidya, Raja Guhya Yoga, which is the knowledge of the true secret knowledge and also the big mystery. Here Lord Krishna says that he takes care of all the needs of his devotees who worship him with strong faith and loving devotion. You probably may have heard this shloka, some of you. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye janah paryupasate tesham nityabhiyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. The Lord says, those who worship other deities also worship me through those deities. So he says this shloka in chapter 9, Yepyanya devata bhaktaha yajante shraddayanvitaha tepi mameva kaunteya yajantya vidhi purvakam. So basically, we can worship any favorite deity of ours we call as Ishta Devata, who becomes our personal protector or guide. In fact, end of the day, it all reaches to one God, the Supreme God. Krishna also says he accepts from anyone who offers anything with complete devotion. It can be a leaf, it can be a flower, it can be a fruit or water or anything for that matter. So he says this in chapter 9 again, Patram pushpam palam toyam yo me bhaktya prayachyati tadaham bhaktyumupahartam ashnami prayatatmanaha. So anything that is offered with devotion will reach God. You know that when we do puja to the Lord, we sometimes say and we offer water. The God still accepts that as the item that you are actually offering. That is his kindness. As long as it is given with shraddha or devotion, he accepts, he's willing to accept that. This is the reason why we also offer our food to God prior to consuming it ourselves. The food that is offered to God is called prasad. Anyone who worships God with faith and devotion can reach God, and the path of devotion is basically open to all. It's not limited to anybody. There are two main philosophies. One is the non-dual philosophy called the Advaita, where we see God and his creation as one and the same. The dualistic philosophy called Dvaita sees God as one reality and his creation as a different reality that is dependent on him. God loves us all the same way. However, he takes personal interest in his devotees because such a person is closer to him. You may compare this to the person that is sitting closer to the fire, getting more heat than the one who sits far away. The good thing is that there is no unforgivable sin or sinner. The fire of repentance burns all sins. When you repent what you have done, you basically extinguish all your sins. This is the Bhagavan says. Now, chapter 10 speaks basically about the glory of the Lord, so called the Vibhuti Yoga. God is the supreme being and is not only the origin of all beings, but is also the cause of all causes. Everything, including our body, mind, thoughts, and feelings, come from God, and he is the creator, supporter, and the destroyer of all. He is infinite, and he neither has a beginning nor end. The entire universe is thus an expansion of a tiny fraction of his energy. All deities are just the names of his various powers. So in the Vibhuti Yoga, towards the end of the chapter, he says, Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam srimadurjitameva va tattadeva vagachatvam mama tejomsha sambhavam. So he says to Arjuna, whatever you see as beautiful, glorious, or powerful, know that it is sprung from a spark of my splendor. I am the cause for everything in this world. That is what God says. And then he also says, Atava bahune tena kim nyatena tavarjuna vishtabhyahamidam kritsnam ekanshena sthito jagat. What is the need for this detailed knowledge, O Arjuna? Simply know that one fraction of my being, with my one fraction of my being, I pervade and support this entire creation. So, worshipping God with faith, using any name form and method, helps us fulfill our needs and become good and peaceful. In chapter 11, finally, Lord, at the request of Arjuna, grants him the vision of his true form, which is the Vishvarupa Darshana. Of course, the Vishvarupa Darshana cannot be seen with our normal eyes. So Bhagavan was kind enough to give Arjuna the Divya Chakshu, which is the divine eyes, for him to see the Lord. So everybody knew something was happening in the battlefield when Arjuna was seeing the divine form with the Divya Chakshu. So that was the kindness of the Lord. Of course, he could realize the Lord, and then the God came back to his original form. So the entire creation basically is nothing but the body of the Creator, and we are all part of that cosmic form of God. This is what is the manifestation of God in chapter 11. Chapter 12 is an important chapter, which is the Bhakti Yoga, or the path of devotion. Now, the path of devotional love of God is very easy to practice. This path consists of deity worship, offering fruits and flowers, singing hymns in praise of the glory of the Lord, developing certain good habits like obeying your parents, helping others in need, not hurting anyone, being friendly to all, saying sorry or asking forgiveness if you hurt anyone, by keeping your mind calm, and be grateful to those who have helped you. God loves those who act in this way, and such people, he called them our bhaktas, my bhaktas, or devotees. So there are a couple of shlokas that he says who are very close to him in terms of bhaktas. Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitrah karuna evacha Nirmamo nirahankaraha samadhukka sukhakshami santushtas satatam yogi yatatma dridha nischayaha mayyarpita mano buddhihi yo madbhakta same priyaha. That bhakta who maintains the stability in difficulty or in good times is the one who is really dear to me. So again, he exemplifies the characters of a devotee that is dear to him. Now, here I wanted to tell you one shloka, probably some of you may know this, is the story of the Bhakta Prahalada, how the Lord came to the rescue of somebody who had true devotion in him. Now, Hiranyakashipu was a king of the demons. He once performed very difficult spiritual practice or tapas, and Lord Brahma, pleased with his penance, gave him a boon that he could not be slain by a man or a beast. The boon made him very arrogant, and he terrorized all the three worlds, saying that there were no gods other than himself, and everyone must start worshipping him. He had a son named Prahalada, who was very religious from birth and who always worshipped Lord Vishnu. This angered his father, Hiranyakashipu, greatly, and he wanted to drive the thought of Vishnu from his son's mind, and so appointed a strict teacher to train him to worship only Hiranyakashipu as God and not Vishnu. Not only did Prahalada refuse to listen to the teacher, he also started teaching other students to worship Vishnu. Now, the angry teacher reported this to the king. The king burst into his son's room and shouted, "I hear that you have been worshipping Vishnu." Trembling, Prahalada said, "Yes, father, I have." "Promise me that you will not do that again," demanded the king. "I cannot promise," Prahalada responded. "Then I will have you killed," shouted the king. "Not unless it is the wish of Lord Vishnu," replied Prahalada. He ordered his guards to throw Prahalada into the ocean. Prahalada remained loyal to Vishnu and kept praying to him with love and devotion. The gods tied him to a huge rock and threw him into the ocean, but by God's grace, the rock fell away and Prahalada floated safely to the surface of water. When asked what he wanted by Lord Vishnu, who surprised Prahalada by standing at the shore, Prahalada replied that he wanted the strength to always love him and never turn his mind away from him. Lord Vishnu granted Prahalada's wishes. Prahalada returned to the palace, and when asked by the king who brought him out of the sea, he simply replied, "Lord Vishnu." At this, the infuriated king asked, "Where is your Lord Vishnu?" and challenged him, "Show him to me." Prahalada replied, "He is everywhere." At this, the king asked, "Is he in this pillar?" To which Prahalada replied, "Yes, he is in this pillar." Hiranyakashipu broke the pillar with his iron club and cried out loud, asking the Lord to come in whatever form he wants. Out from the pillar jumped the Lord in half man and half lion form, called Narasimha. Nara for the human part of it and Simha for the lion part of it. Frightened, the king asked for help, but no one came. Narasimha picked up Hiranyakashipu, placed him on his lap, mauled his body, tore it apart. Thus Hiranyakashipu met his end. God then blessed Prahalada for the deep faith he placed in him. To this date, Prahalada is counted as one of the greatest devotees of Lord Vishnu. So this story is narrated for you to understand what devotion can do to an individual. In the chapter 13th, which is Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga, which talks about the creation and the creator. From a non-dualistic point of view, the Advaita philosophy, as I told you before, there is no difference between the creator and the creation. The difference is like between the sun and the sun's rays. Those who have self-knowledge truly understand the difference between the creator and the creation and become God realized. The shloka that explains this in the 13th chapter is Yata prakashayatyekaha kritsnam lokamimam ravihi kshetram kshetri tatha kritsnam prakashayati bharata. So he says, "Hey Arjuna, Just as one sun illumines the entire solar system, so does the individual soul illumine the entire body with consciousness. The entire universe basically has to be understood as His, the Lord's expansion, and everything is nothing but Him. God is both the creator and the creation, the protector and the protected, the destroyer and the destroyed. He is within us, outside us, near, far, and everywhere. Our body is like a miniature universe. It is made up of 5 basic elements and powered by the Spirit. Universe has one and only one creator, or the creative power behind it. We call that power by various other names. God cannot be known, seen, described, or understood by an ordinary human mind. The Creator Himself has become the creation, like the cotton has become the thread, the cloth, and the dress. Moving on to chapter 14, here God gives you the 3 types of people, the nature of the 3 types of people, 3 gunas, if you will, in this world. We all pass through these 3 states of or modes called mode of goodness, called sattva guna, the mode of passion, called the rajas, and the mode of ignorance, called the tamas. We come under the influence of all the 3 modes. Sometimes one mode becomes more powerful than the other 2. When we are under the influence of goodness, we do good and right actions. And when under the influence of passion, we do selfish actions. And under the influence of ignorance, we get lazy or do bad things. One has to rise above all these 3 gunas to attain liberation. So the shloka says, Gunan etan atityatrin dehi deha samudbhavan janma mrityu jara dhukkaihi vimuktomritam. By transcending the 3 modes of material nature associated with the body, one becomes free from birth, death, old age, misery, and attains immortality. Now, here is a small story that talks about the nature of these 3 gunas. Once a man was going through a forest with 3 robbers when 3 robbers jumped on him and robbed him. One of the robbers then said, "There is no use keeping this man alive," and so was about to kill him with a sword. The second robber stopped and said, "There is no use of killing him, so let us tie him to a tree and leave him there." So they left him to a tree and went away. A little while later, the third robber came and said to the man, "I'm sorry, you are hurt. I shall untie you." After setting the man free, the thief said, "Come with me and I will take you to the public highway." After a long time, they reached the road. The man said to the robber, "Sir, you have been very good to me. Come with me to my house." The robber said, "Oh no, I can't go there as the police will know about it." The forest is his world. The 3 robbers are the 3 gunas: goodness, passion, and laziness. They rob us of self-knowledge. Laziness wants to destroy us. Passion ties us to this world. And goodness frees us from the grasp of passion and laziness. Goodness also loosens the bonds of the world. However, you have to note that the goodness is also a robber. It cannot give us the knowledge of God. So we have to rise above these 3 gunas to get the self-realization about God. It can show us the path leading to the house of God, but so we have to rise above these 3 gunas and develop the love for God. So this is chapter 14. Actually, now all work is done by the 3 gunas of nature. We are not the doers, but are responsible for our actions, as we are given a mind and free will to decide between right and wrong action. One can escape the influence of the 3 gunas by sincere effort, devotion to God, and His grace. Now, moving on to the chapter 15, which is the Purushottama Yoga, or the yoga of the Supreme Person. The Supreme Person, called Purushottama, is the Supreme Being, the Super Soul, the Absolute, the God, Ishvara. He goes by many other names. The Supreme Spirit is also called Parabrahma, Paramatma, Paramashiva, or Krishna. The Supreme Source is the root of everything. There is nothing higher than the Supreme Spirit. Brahma himself is a part of the Supreme Spirit that expands and supports the entire cosmos. Individual souls, such as all living beings, are just the expansions of the divine beings. The creation is changeable and does not last forever. It has a limited lifespan. Brahma or Atma does not change and is eternal. It is the cause of all causes. Krishna is called Parabrahma, or the Supreme Being. He is also called the Absolute because he has no origin. He is the source of Brahma, and everything in this universe comes from Brahma. The entire visible world and its creatures are created by Brahma, the creative power of Brahma, sustained by Vishnu's power and destroyed by Maheshwara. So this is the Supreme Being. Now, moving on to chapter 16, which is the Daivasura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga, where the Lord talks about the divine and the demonic qualities. One must be honest, non-violent, truthful, shed anger, be calm, kind, not greedy, be gentle, forgiving, and humble. These are called divine qualities as they lead us to God. Hypocrisy, telling lies, arrogance, pride, jealousy, selfishness, anger, greed, harshness, ungratefulness, violence are all bad qualities, and they lead us away from the God. Desire, anger, and greed are very destructive, and Krishna called these three as the three gates to hell. So he says, Trividham narakasyedam dwaram nashanam atmanaha kamah krodasthatha lobha tasmadedatrayam tyajet. There are three gates leading to the hell of self-destruction for the soul: lust, anger, and greed. Therefore, all should abandon all these three. Now, here is a story that I would like to tell about how greed leads to sorrow. There was one day a dog which found a bone. He picked the bone in its mouth and went to a lonely corner to chew it. He sat there and chewed the bone for some time. The dog felt thirsty and picked up the bone in his mouth and walked over a small wooden bridge to drink water from the creek. But when he saw his own reflection in the water, he thought there was another dog with a bone in the river. Becoming greedy, he wanted to have the other bone also. He opened his mouth to bark and to take the other bone from the other dog. As soon as he opened his mouth, the bone dropped out of his mouth and fell into the creek. The dog realized his mistake, but it was too late. Greed can be overcome by being satisfied with what one has. A satisfied person is a very happy person, and a greedy person cannot find true peace and happiness in life. To sum up, there are only two types of human beings in this world: one who possess good or divine qualities, and one who possess bad or demonic qualities. Most people have both good and bad qualities. Getting rid of the bad habits and cultivating the good habits is necessary for spiritual progress. So this is the essence of chapter 16. Now moving on to chapter 17, which is the Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga, or the three types of faith. Here, Lord Krishna gives details about the three types of foods that are liked by people who have these three gunas: the sattvic, the rajasic, and the tamasic qualities. The food that brings long life, virtue, strength, health, and happiness are juicy, smooth, substantial, and nutritious. Such foods, Lord Krishna says, are sattvic foods and are the best. Foods that are very bitter, sour, salty, hot, oily, acidic, are basically rajasic or undesirable foods. Such junk foods are unhealthy, cause diseases, and should be avoided. Foods that are not well cooked, spoiled, tasteless, rotten, burned, leftover, and impure are called tamasic or bad foods, and one should not eat such foods. One should never tell a lie. The words should not be harsh, bitter, nasty, or insulting. They should be sweet, useful, and truthful. So the Lord says, Anudvegakaram vakyam sat satyam priyahitam chayat swadhyayabhyasanam chaiva vangmayam tapa uchyate. Words that do not cause distress are truthful, inoffensive, and beneficial, as well as the regular recitation of the Vedic scriptures. These are declared as the austerity of speech. One who speaks politely wins the heart of all and is liked by everybody. A wise person should speak the truth if it is helpful and keep quiet if it is harsh. It is our duty to help those who are less fortunate and can't help themselves. Help anyone who needs help without expecting anything in return. We should give charity and help a good cause. Give back what belongs to the world. Money given to charity should be earned by lawful means, and make sure we give to deserving, and the receiver is not a person who will use the gift for evil purposes. So the Lord says how we should give charity. Datavyamiti yaddanam diyate nupakarine deshe kale cha patre cha taddanam satvikam smritam. Charity given to a worthy person simply because it is right to give at the proper time and in the proper place without considering anything in return is stated to be the mode of goodness. Full faith in God can make anything happen. There is really nothing impossible for those who have a strong faith. Faith works miracles. Gita says we can become whatever we want to be if we always think about it and pray to God with faith. Sattvanurupa sarvasya shraddha bhavati bharata shraddha mayoyam purushaha yoyat shraddhasa eva saha. The faith of all humans conforms to the nature of their mind. All people possess faith, and whatever the nature of their faith, that is what they are truly are. Now, all difficulties can be removed by faith in God and a firm determination to succeed. But the fruits of success must be shared with others. If you want your dream to be fulfilled, help fulfill someone else's dream. Now, I wanted to give you a small story here to understand somebody who was very determined to achieve something. We all need that. Now, Yava was the son of a sage who practiced hard to get the blessings of Indra, who was the king of the Devas. He tortured his body with austerities and thus awakened the sympathy of Indra. Whenever we torture our body, the lords wake up and they come in front of us. Indra appeared before him and asked, "Why are you hurting your body?" Yava answered, "I would like to be a great scholar of the Vedas, but it takes a long time to learn Vedas from a teacher. So I am practicing austeric methods to get that knowledge directly. Please bless me." Indra smiled and said, "Son, you are on the wrong path. Go home, find a good teacher, and learn the Vedas from him. Austerity is not a way to learn Vedas. The path to Vedas is study and study alone." With these words, Indra went away. But Yava would not give up. He practiced the austerities even harder and did penance even harder. Indra came before him again and said the same thing as before. But Yava said, "If my prayers are not answered, I would sever my arms and legs one by one and offer them to the fire." So he continued his penance. And one morning, during his austerities, he went to bathe in the holy Ganges when he saw an old man throwing handfuls of sand into the river. When asked by Yava what he was doing, the old man responded he was going to build a dam across the river so that people can cross the river easily. Yava laughed and said, "What a fool you must be to think of building a dam across the mighty river with your handfuls of sand. Go home and do some other useful work." The old man said, "Is my work more foolish than yours trying to learn the Vedas by not studying them, but by austerities?" Yava now knew who that old man was. He was Indra himself. Yava earnestly begged Indra to grant him a wish to learn. Indra blessed him and confronted Yava. "I grant you the wish you want. Go and read the Vedas. You will become learned." Yava subsequently studied the Vedas and became a great scholar of the Vedas. So, the secret of success here lies in keep thinking about what you want to always and never give up until you get what you want. Do not let negative thoughts such as delaying to start work, laziness, and carelessness stand in your way. Now, coming to the last chapter of Gita, the Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, or the Nirvana, or attaining liberation, in this chapter, Lord Krishna defines sannyasa as giving up selfish motives behind all work. So he says, Kamyanam karmanam nyasam sannyasam kavayo viduhu sarva karma palatyagam prahustyagam vichakshanaha. Giving up actions motivated by desire is what the wise understand as sannyas. Relinquishing the fruits of all actions is what the learned declare to be tyaga. You have to relinquish the fruit of all actions and do without expecting anything. In Karma Yoga, the need to give up the selfish desire of enjoying the results of one's work was explained. A sannyasi is an advanced Karma Yogi who does not do anything for personal benefit. True sannyasa is giving up ego, and it leads to nirvana or moksha. In a spiritual sense, ego is a notion that the person is the doer, owner, and enjoyer of everything, whereas in reality, God is the doer and owner of everything in the cosmos, as well as the enjoyer. We are all just instruments or tools in his hand. Salvation is not possible without giving up ego. In the 11th chapter, when he gave the Vishwarupa Darshana, Bhagavan says, Tasmat tvamuttishta yasho labhasva chitva shatrun bhungshva rajyam samriddham mayai vete nihatah purvameva nimitta matram bhava savyasachin. So he says, I have already slain these warriors that are in front of you. I am just using you as an instrument. You just be the cause. You don't have to worry if your arrow will kill them or not. I have already slain them. That's what he says. So everything happens by him. We are just seeing through God. And we sometimes wrongfully think. Why sometimes? Every time we think that we are the doer. But actually God is the doer. Therefore, arise and attain honor. Conquer your foes and enjoy prosperous rulership. These warriors stand already slain by me, and you will only be an instrument of my work, O expert archer, he says to Arjuna. Work becomes worship when done as a service to the Lord and without selfish attachment to results. So if you work honestly, for which you are suited, you incur no karmic reaction and attain God. If you take on work that was not meant for you, such work only produces stress and you will not be very successful. So it is important to find work that suits your own nature. You can attain God by doing your duty with devotion to God and keeping your senses under control by some form of spiritual practice. Here is a story that illustrates how one can attain self-realization by sincerely doing one's duty. A holy man named Kaushika had acquired great spiritual powers. One day, he sat under a tree meditating. A crane at the top of the tree soiled his head with its droppings. Kaushika looked at it angrily, and his anger looked at the bird, killed the bird instantly. The holy man was pained when he saw the dead bird lying on the ground. Sometime later, he went to get alms and stood before the door of a house. The housewife was servicing her husband with food and seemed to forget the holy man waiting outside. After a while, she came out with food, asking for forgiveness for the delay. But Kaushika angrily told her that it was not fair on her part to have him kept waiting for so long. The woman insisted that she was only serving her sick husband and hence the delay. The holy man did not agree and said she was an arrogant lady who made him wait. At this, the lady said, I am no crane to be killed by your anger. Your anger cannot harm a woman who devotes herself to the service of her husband and family. Kaushika, though, was surprised and wondered how she knew the crane incident. The lady further continued, O great one, you do not know the sacred of duty, and anger is the greatest enemy that dwells in human beings. Go to the village Rampur in Mithila and learn the secrets of doing one's duty with devotion from Vyadaraj. Now Kaushika duly went to the village as suggested by the lady and met the man by the name of Vyadaraj. He was surprised that Vyadaraj was a butcher selling meat at a butcher's shop. On seeing the sage, the butcher got up and asked, "Honored sir, did that pure lady send you to me? I know why you have come. Let's go home." The butcher took Kaushika to his home, where he saw a happy family and was greatly amazed at the love and respect with which the butcher served his parents. Kaushika learned the lesson of doing one's duty from the butcher. Vyadaraj did not kill the animals. He never ate meat. He just carried on his family business after his father retired. Soon after, Kaushika returned to his home and began to serve his parents, a duty which he had neglected before. The moral of the story is one can reach spiritual perfection by honestly performing one's duty in life. This is true worship of God. Yatah pravrittirbhutanam yena sarvamidam tatam swakarmana tamabhyarcha siddhim vindati manavaha. By performing one's natural occupation, one worships the Creator from whom all living entities have come into being and by whom the whole universe is pervaded. By such performance of work, a person easily attains perfection. Everlasting peace and wealth are possible only when you do your duty well and also have the spiritual knowledge mentioned in the Holy Gita by Lord Krishna. So, Sanjaya concludes his narration to Dhritarashtra saying, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishnaha, Yatra Partho Dhanurdharaha, Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutihi, Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama. Wherever there is Krishna, the Lord of all yoga, wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also be certainly unending opulence, victory, prosperity, and righteousness. Of this I am certain, says Sanjaya. So one can get realization of God by following the 3 Ds: duty, discipline, and devotion to God, the 3 Ds. Now, I will conclude this topic by just giving you a few reasoning as to why we should all take to Gita. Now, Gita Mahatmyam, that speaks about the greatness of Gita, says there is one should sing Gita which emanated from Lord Padmanabha or Krishna himself. One who reads that Gita or one who sings that Gita, for him there is no need for other Shastras, meaning Gita is comprehensive in itself. In his Bhaja Govindam, Sri Adi Shankaracharya says, one must chant or sing the Gita daily. Geyam Gita, he says. Madan Mohan Malaviya, Dr. Madan Mohan Malaviya, who founded the Benares Hindu University and served as its first vice chancellor and later became the president of the Indian National Congress in 1909 and 1918, had this to say about Gita. As far as I know, there is no other treatise as distinguished and excellent in the entire universe, the collective literature of the entire universe, as Srimad Bhagavad Gita. This treasure of Dharma is not just for Hindus, but for the entire mankind. Chanting of the Gita increases one's curiosity to know the meaning, and this leads to deeper study, thereby gaining knowledge that in turn can help lead to transform oneself. The Lord dwells at all times where Gita is read, heard, taught, and contemplated upon. The Lord himself says, I reside in Gita, and Gita is my best abode. I protect the 3 worlds with the knowledge of the Gita. He who meditates on the meaning of Gita, having performed a great number of good actions, attains the supreme goal of fulfillment. Chanting Gita also helps pronunciation, memory, concentration, phonetics, etc. Now, to complete the benefits of learning, realizing, and imparting the gospel, Bhagavan Krishna says, Adyeshyate cha imam dharmyam samvadam avayoho jnana yajnena tenaham ishtasyamiti me matihi. He says, I am pleased by him who performs this jnana yajna, the study of this precept, in the form of our dialogue. And this is my considered view. This is coming from Bhagavan himself. So let us all learn to chant and understand the meaning of Gita, follow the teachings of Gita to cleanse ourselves and live a superior life. So before I end, I would like to give my sincere gratitude to Dr. Kavita ji for this opportunity to share what I knew. But I'll also be remiss if I do not thank Sri Hariji of Lokakshema Satsang, but for whom I would not have known about this opportunity. I hope this was useful to you. Thank you all for listening. Om Tat Sat, Shri Krishna Arpanamastu.
Thank you, Venkatesh ji. Thank you so very much. It was very interesting and thought-provoking. Many types of ideas. Anyone can pick up many types of ideas from Bhagavad Gita, and which can be very useful for anyone's life, for the entire mankind, if they want to transform, if anyone want to transform his or her life. And it was a wide spectrum of Hindus. It was so interesting and thought-provoking. And especially Hindu, you mentioned that Vedas are revealed work. Thank you for that. And hope we all will learn many things from this treasure of knowledge. And thank you again. I would like to invite people if they have anything to say or to ask from Venkatesh ji. If anyone to add anything, if you have any question to ask, please unmute yourself. Venkatesh ji, could you please go through the chat if there is something?
Yes, I am not seeing any questions as it is.
Yeah, not questions, but
people are
enlightening.
And thank you all of you for the feedback that you have given in the chat.
Yes, great review of the teaching in Gita. Diveta says, Priya says, I really found it enlightening. Yes, thank you, Vete. Priya says it was a very interesting session and I enjoyed. Yes, oh, this was so cool. I learned a lot, Priya writes. Thank you very much. It was so nice. I know it is it was a long day from each day is a long day from 2 weeks. Tomorrow will be our last day. And we will have 4 sessions as usual. And the first session is going to be very interesting because you will meet a software engineer who will be talking about Vedic math. In the first session, he will be discussing Vedic math. So please do join and invite everyone if you can, and we will see you again. Take plenty of rest, have proper food. Good night, good evening. Thank you. Namaste. Dhanyavad.
Kavita ji, Tanvi has raised a hand. I don't know if she had anything to say. Or...
I have a question.
Yes.
Yes.
Regarding the competition, so for our final product, how do we get it to you? Do we email it to you?
Beta, can you raise this question in on my personal email or to the administration group?
Okay.
Thank you, Beta.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you again, everyone. Namaste. We will see you.